What does the word woke mean to you? Do we live in a woke world? It's 2026 and we are on Elevate, the awareness shift, waking the quantum self. And we're going to talk about the meaning of woke and other things and political agendas. We're going to get a little bit political today. We don't normally get political today on the show. Stay tuned. I'm just looking for the intro. Where's the damn intro? Here we go. Welcome to Elevate, the awareness shift, waking the quantum self. I'm KAren Swain, your host, and you're listening on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3 FM, syndicated radio all over the world. Hello. Welcome to Elevate. No one in the comments yet. No chatty Cathy's in the comments yet. Oh, well, I wanted to ask them what Elevate meant to them. I'm not Elevate. Sorry, I'm really not with the program today. What woke meant to you. And welcome, Kristin Miss Smith.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank
my
you.
Co-host on Elevate. We've been hatching a plan for her to be a co-host on ATP Media this year too.
It might happen. Now.
Yeah, I was chatting to someone the other day. You know, I've been doing the interview shows for about 16 years or so, maybe longer. And I every year I think, am I still going to continue them? And I still continue because I stay curious and I love meeting people and hearing their stories and hearing what they have to say. You know, I'm so curious. I love it. But this year I've been seriously thinking about not doing it. And somebody said to me at the end of the last year, it might have been Vinny. I can't remember exactly who it was. Why don't you get someone who can, you know, fill in with you, who can do the shows when you don't want to do the shows? And I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. And I said to Kristin, do you want to do that? Because she's been saying, I'm going to start my own podcast show. And it hasn't happened yet. And I'm thinking, well, I've got a podcast show. You could just, you know, be on mine.
I could be on yours. And
yeah,
it'd be great. Hey, there's a streaming problem on Facebook, if you notice, and I'm wondering if that's the UPRN.
Yeah, it's Facebook has problems. It's okay. The UPN, the United Public Radio, Facebook.
Yeah,
glitchy. Facebook's always a bit glitchy. I don't know why with StreamYard, but we are streaming on 3 YouTube channels. We've got to get your YouTube channel up there. Twitch. Yep. Rumble and Odyssey. Odyssey's had some problems lately too. I think they've stopped streaming my shows too. Anyway, they did last week. I'll see if they're doing it this week. Tech issues. So I've only got 3 people I can see so far online. I wanted to ask people, what does the word woke mean to you? But we need some audience engagement to do that, because Kristin and I were just talking about it before we went live. I was saying that I had a friend during COVID who was locked down, who has a normal business, who got very into his spiritual work, and he's thought about it. He's played with an idea for many, many years of starting like an agency for spiritual teachers and touring them around the world, just like there are agencies for bands and things like that. And there are a few agencies for spiritual teachers out there, and there are many agencies that put spiritual teachers on podcast shows, because I get email after email after email from all these agencies asking me. But anyway, he thought, right, I'm going to do it. He kind of had a real spiritual epiphany during COVID. And he said, I'm going to start this agency. I'm going to call it Woke World. And I thought, wow, that's such a great name, right?
Yeah. Sounds.
Hey, Heidi.
Hi, Heidi.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, it sounds to me, with my limited knowledge of what woke really is.
Yeah. So to me, before that time, the word woke meant to me awakening. So we talk about in the spiritual consciousness community, I had a spiritual awakening, a Kundalini awakening. I did ayahuasca and I had an awakening. There's this word awakening, constantly said in the spiritual community or consciousness community, consciousness expanding community. And that's what the word woke meant to me. And when he said, I'm going to call it Woke World, I thought, such a great name. And then I started hearing the word woke. She's making a coffee. Started hearing the word woke bandied around on social media and news programs and podcast shows in a very derogatory way. And I'm like, what are they talking about? And I didn't understand what they were talking about. Anyway, what did woke mean to you? You're a bit like me, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to openly admit that, since I started to wake up, which is what it was to me, and step into more spiritually conscious, not religious, ways, I stopped listening to the news media so much. And so I feel like I was a little ignorant about that word, the same with your friend, and using woke like that. And so to me, it just seemed like awakened. But then I did start to hear the negative connotation, and I thought I was hearing it, as a positive light for the right side of the media, as in, the politically, far right media, not right as incorrect, but but then I started hearing it from the left. And so, with you having this topic up, I did a little research, and you've done a little research, and it's interesting to see where it stems from, which is, in my estimation, it stems from a lot of the African Americans, the Black Americans, not necessarily, the Black cultures all over the world, but the Black, African Americans, which is what we call them. And how it was like, wake up to, the pressure, and wake up and stand up for yourselves and everything. And
yeah.
And it's been bandied around like that for years. I think I'll wind that up just saying that I think that's why it got attached to the left, the media that's on the more left side, which is less conservative, because it's the conservative right, and then the politically left are more like Democrats in America. And it's because the African American population has generally been more associated with the left side of the media.
Oh, yeah,
and that's where I think that got taken in that way.
Yeah. During COVID, the whole awakening idea really shifted with a lot of my friends, because to me, awakening was having a spiritual awakening, remembering who I am as an infinite being of, connected to source or infinite intelligence. We come from a unified field of infinite possibility, all that good stuff, right? And it was a positive thing. And being spiritually awake meant, it was a positive thing. But then people started talking about awakening in that I'm awakening to the corruption of the world. I'm awake now. Before, I was delusional, and I trusted my government, and I trusted, politics, and I trusted the doctors, and I trusted everybody. But now I'm awake, and everybody's wrong, and like pushing against, and a lot of anger. Like I had friends in the spiritual community with such love and light, beautiful people, that after 2020 and 2021, 2022, they were just angry at everything. And I felt like lied to, and they called that awake. And I'm scratching my head thinking, God, okay, we've redefined this word awake. I'm now awake. But I want to talk about, just looking at the chat, I want to talk about the Wikipedia meaning of woke, because I put it in Wikipedia. What does Wikipedia say about it? This is what they said.
Instead of AI, thank you, Karen. Instead of AI.
I could have put it into AI. Well, you can put it into ChatGPT. Woke is an adjective derived from African American English, used since the 1930s or earlier to refer to awareness of racial prejudice and discrimination, often in the construction of stay woke. The term acquired political connotations by the 1970s and gained further popularity in the 2010s with the hashtag stay woke. Over time, woke came to be used to refer to a broader awareness of social inequities such as sexism and denial of the LGBTQ rights. Woke has also been used as a shorthand for some ideas of the American left, what you were talking about, involving identity politics and social justice, such as white privilege and repatriation of slavery in the United States. So it comes from, the original word comes from American politics. As I say, for me, it came from that spiritual awakening and then awakening to the corruption in the world. So I think today it's kind of been meshed with all those meanings, and people are throwing it around, they're banding it around, because you hear it all the time. Oh, these woke people, but it's always used as a derogatory term. And I think about that, and I've been thinking about it ever since I became aware of it, 5 odd years ago. And I'm like, well, who are these woke people? So the right likes to slam the left and vice versa. I'm not sure who owns the word woke as a derogatory term, like which side.
Like they have the copyright on it?
Which side. But yeah, and I think about my friend Janet, who thinks that I'm bonkers, but she says she loves me anyway. We don't talk so much anymore. And I was on a plane with her in 2012. A few of us were flying to Bali. And I had a discussion with her about spirituality and religion. She's one of my friends that grew up Catholic, and then after school, went to a Catholic school. After school, totally turned her back on any sort of religion or Catholic. Didn't make any sense to her, which, you know, it's like fine. It's like you, right? When you're entrenched in a religion that's throwing these demands at you and you're an intelligent person, you're like, that doesn't make any sense. I was a kid asking my parents, why did the baby need to be baptized? How can you be born in sin? That doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
Right.
So, but instead of finding something else, she just didn't think about it. She just got on with life and didn't think about it. Well, a lot of my friends are like that, especially when they were Catholics. So I asked her, what do you believe in? She said, I believe in kindness. And I thought, well, that's a good thing to believe in, you know.
Yeah.
I believe in kindness and human dignity and all that sort of thing. I don't attach it to an ideology or a religion, but that's what I believe in. And these people like her who do believe in kindness see this, you know, they believe in freedom of speech and freedom to live the way you want to live. You know, see these agendas like the LGBTQ agenda as people's right to live like that. And they also think about the climate and the way we, you know, are we being kind to the earth? Or even spiritual people, like, are we being kind to the earth? And like, maybe we shouldn't pollute the earth so much. And then politics and companies with agenda start to use people's human kindness and discernment against them. And I was showing Kristin this video. I was saying recently I discovered Winston Marshall's podcast show. Winston Marshall was a singer in the band Mumford and Sons, and he started to think about the world in much the same way that we're thinking about the world. What's the meaning, Alfie? What's the meaning to life? And started to go down the
Alfie?
What's it all about? And he started talking, and when he was talking, because he was in a band, people told him to shut up. You're going to hurt the band because people don't want to hear your points of view. Just sing. Don't talk. And he said that he had a decision to make. Do I talk or do I sing? And he felt so passionate about his ideas that he started talking. So he left the band and he started a podcast show. And it's quite a political podcast show. It's called Winston Marshall. On YouTube, you can find it, a bit like Stephen Barnett's Diary of a CEO. So he interviews some interesting people. And he was interviewing this woman who he calls a whistleblower. Let me see if I can play a little bit for you. Share screen. Let me see if this is going to work. It didn't work before we went live, but I'm going to.
I love your optimism.
Tell me if you can hear this. This woman who worked for the Davos.
You are an outspoken whistleblower. You've called out the Davos elites.
Internet problems.
Old systems are not fit for the 21st century. We need a great reset.
How did you get to a point where you helped build the WEF's Great Reset?
In 2020, I get my dream job. So I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer at Deutsche Bank. When I was there, that's when I see the fraud. Everything is a marketing scam. The bottom line is this. we cannot issue this annual report. This is a legal living document. It is filled with lies. And a couple of weeks later, I was fired. And the next day, the annual report came out with all the lies. They don't just fire me. They go on this horrific smear campaign. In 2 days, the U.S. authorities call me up, the SEC, the FBI, and the Department of Justice. And they ask me.
You're going further and say they're controlling the world.
Okay, so that's just a little bit of the podcast. Let me stop sharing. And it was really interesting as she delves into these big companies, Deutsche Bank and all these big companies, and how they've used people's concerns over freedom and kindness and stewarding the earth against them, coming out, corruption. Yeah, corruption, I know. And this is where this word woke gets really sort of entrenched in all this stuff, because I think of my friend Janet, who is, not into spirituality or religion or any sort of form like that, but she is totally on board with, is your left the Democrats? Because I always forget, because in Australia it's different. Okay, yeah. On the left agenda as opposed to the Democrats, which is more about climate change and freedom for, living the way you want to live and everything, which I would understand. But then they take that agenda and they twist it for their own gain and purpose. Yeah. And then the other side calls them woke. You woke people, and so this woman talks about climate change being an absolute scam, and these companies just using it to just make money. They're saying, oh, we're cleaning up the climate, we're stopping climate change. And yeah, and it's so, and then people call them woke. Oh, you woke people, yeah, so it's just a way to degrade people. It's a word to degrade people, make people think that they're stupid. What are you saying here? My bank has been giving me mountains of monkey wrenches. I have no idea what that means.
No idea what she means by that.
And yeah, so as a time, I've been thinking about this for about 5 years. Like, what is it? I had Aaron Abke on the show probably about 5 odd years ago, and then I had him in the Inner Sanctum. Remember? And I said to him, it was at the time where I'd come to know this word woke, and I'm like, what does the word woke mean, Aaron? Everyone's using this word woke, and he's like, oh, I don't know. He was confused as well. He was coming from that religious background, and then he had a spiritual awakening inside his religious, dogma ideology.
Yeah.
And and I'm thinking, so what do we do about it? Like, what do we do about it? And I started to think, it's like we latch onto these words, and they become so huge, and they're used to just degrade people. The people, like us and my friend who doesn't think about, well, not us, but people who don't think about life too deeply. They're into their family and their job and making money and going on holidays and normal things. And they don't think too deeply about the state of the world or spirituality or spiritual way or anything like that. But they can be easily manipulated because they're not really looking into different agendas. They're just believing what the mainstream is putting out. And they... monkey wrench, hurdles, challenges. What's she saying here? Challenges, everything that goes not according to plan.
Yeah. The hurdles and challenges. I get what she's saying there.
Yeah, it's like the word like Karen. I was at school with 5 Karens. So Karen is a name that in the 60s, early 60s and late 60s, or during the 60s, it's a very, very common name, like Jane. It's a common name. So
it is in the States as well. So
is it? So someone decided that if you're a Karen, it means that you're a angry idiot of a woman that's going to yell and scream and upset the apple cart, and that has become common knowledge as well. Like, who makes up this stuff?
Well, and I kind of remember the evolution of Karen. I almost said Karen. Of Karen. When it started to pop up, and I remember my kids kind of using it to describe like the perfect little soccer mom who had an opinion on everything. And then it grew to be this big thing of, a woman who gets really upset and points things out and stands up and tries to fix it or tries to tell somebody what to do. And, and I actually got really upset with my kids at one point, and they were using it and just bantering it around.
Right.
Because I started to feel like it became a way to denigrate women again.
Mm-hmm.
To just, because, if I stood up for myself in a store where I got a misprice, then I'm going to be labeled a Karen. And I found myself not wanting to speak up sometimes about, getting the wrong order at a restaurant, because they were going to call me a Karen. Wait, what? I'm just standing up for myself. I just didn't get the order that I wanted. And they're going to call me they've done it to women again. They're making me want to not stand up for myself out of fear. And it just, it all just creates fear to me, Karen, which is the lowest form of a vibration.
And who is doing this? Like, who is putting that agenda out? Who is deciding that this is now going to be a thing and everyone's going to use this word, and
they jump on it.
And do we buy into it? So when I think about the word Karen, when I first heard it, I was really upset, even though I pronounce my name differently, as everybody knows, Karen, not Karen. It's a derivative of the same word, like Kate is Catherine and Kathy is Catherine. It's a derivative of the same name. And I know so many Karens, and I've met so many Karens. And the truth is, they're all giving, loving, beautiful people, whether they work in healthcare systems or they're parents or, like all of the Karens I know, and I know many, are just amazing people. Mm-hmm. Do they get angry sometimes and get upset at unfairness and injustice? Yeah. But is that exclusive to your name?
No.
But you're right. It is another way to denigrate women.
That's how it felt to me. And I just thought, we've come so far. Why are we going backwards? And that's what I think a lot of those political agendas, if we want to use that term, do for me, make me feel like we're going backwards often.
Yeah. Well, so the way to counteract this is to stand up for the word. And I found this when I was looking up, as I said, the word woke. I found this slogan saying, as it said, the hashtag stay woke. Somebody calls you woke, like own it and say, yeah, I am awake, I am woke, rather than taking it as a insult. Because to me, every time it's used, it's talking about people that are concerned about the LGBTQ rights or Black Lives Matter, or people that are concerned about the caring for others or the environment, caring for the earth. And so to me, that's a good thing. If you are, thinking about other things rather than your own selfish pursuits, like that's a good thing. So I would own it. And if people call you a Karen, say, yep, I'm a Karen. I'm a woman who stands up for themselves and is not afraid to say what I mean or speak my rights. Yeah.
Well, and I get confused, and I'm just going to go a little more. I just want to go here. And that is, there's all these people in our community that channel Pleiadians or Arcturians or off-world beings or angels, or they talk about, the archangels and how they're really not gendered. They're really not gendered, or they can choose to present as a gender if it feels good to me. One can present as a certain gender. My spirit guide can be either male or female, depending on what's comfortable for me. That sort of dialogue. And so I meet all these beautiful spiritual people that have these ideals, even thinking about the Thayuba prophecy and how they were hermaphroditic, beings from other planets, and how that's really common out there. Well, then they go, well, it's that LGBTQ woke agenda. They're trying to brainwash everybody to think that they should be gay or trans. And, that really happens a lot here on the very right, the conservative right side. And so there are people in my spiritual community that are very spiritually open and open to those ideals. Like I said, hi, Michelle. And that is, and yet they get caught up in being angry at the woke side of, oh, it's that woke LGBTQ agenda that, you know, they're all caught up in. And I'm like, but don't you believe that on a spiritual level, we're not really gendered?
Right.
I get confused. And so I think on a more spiritual scale, it's way more open.
Because people are brainwashed and they buy into agendas. And I think that it stems from a need to want to belong. And so when the voice is loud enough and enough people are saying it, then people just jump on it because, you know, it's like it's a teenage mentality. I want to belong. So I'm going to say what you say. I'm going to agree with you. I might, you know, without thinking about it, I'm just going to agree with you because everybody's saying it. It's a bit like fashion, isn't it? I remember critical mass. When enough people decide something is right or something looks good, then everybody, it sort of runs through the mind of everybody.
Yeah.
I remember in the 90s that, you know, I've said this many times, I asked my guides how critical mass, a lot of people call it the 100th monkey effect,
right?
How it works. And they used me as an example. They said, remember when you hated that look of wearing a singlet over a T-shirt? You thought it looked stupid. And then a couple of years later, you were buying it and you thought it looked really good. And I thought to myself, yeah, you know, there was a time where I was buying that look. And I remember distinctly thinking, that looks ridiculous. Why are you wearing your singlet over your T-shirt? You should be wearing it under your T-shirt. And then I'm buying it thinking, oh, I want to wear this. And when did I make that decision that I now like this look? It's like I don't remember saying, okay, I'm going to change my mind and I'm not going to like this look. I don't remember. It just happened. Enough people decided it was on every it was in Kmart.
Yeah, it just showed up.
Every shop. And now everyone's wearing it. It's like, okay, I'm wearing it. I think I watched this show, Simon Cowell, on Netflix about him trying to start a new boy band. It was really fascinating. I think I talked about it on one of the shows. Did I talk about it with you? Anyway, it was fascinating to see how he put the call out for young boys in between, 16 and 20 to start this new boy band. And he thought he would just get millions of contestants signing up, and he didn't initially. And he's like, what's happened? I'm thinking the world has changed. You know, young men no longer, every young man no longer thinks, you know, I want to be in a boy band. They're thinking about other things because he started One Direction 15 years ago, which became the boy band. 15 years later, he thinks he's going to do it again. So he makes a documentary about his attempting to it. So anyway, they start these auditions in different places in Britain, 3 different cities. And I swear to you, every kid, bar one, it's like 99% of these kids had exactly the same haircut. They even talk about it in the show. Yes. It's like exactly the same. Even Simon Cowell had the same haircut. It's like once it goes through the mind of the collective, critical mass, it hits critical mass.
And I think it goes
like, yeah, go on.
Well, and I just think it goes faster now because of the internet. And you're reminding me of 2 things. One is a fashion thing, and I don't even go into it because we all know what you're talking about. But there was a fashion thing that I was like, never, ever.
Never,
and I totally
ever.
Still wear it 10 years later. But the other is I remember hearing a channeling with Abraham Hicks, and it was during, you know, COVID and people wearing masks and stuff like that. And the channeled message that was coming through was, hey, do you remember 20 years ago or 30 years ago when you were really upset about having a law created to force you to wear your seatbelt in your car? And you were so upset about it. And you asked us about it, and we said, you know, you have your right to choose about wearing a seatbelt, but it's the law. And you fought it. And then now you get in a car and you put your seatbelt on without thinking about it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they didn't particularly say like that's if masks are going to be mandated to wear all over the world for, you know, for the rest of time and eternity, you know, are we going to get used to it or what? But it was a very interesting point in that, you know, we become used to it and it just becomes a part of it. Rather than getting so upset about it,
becomes a part of the operating system.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the people that think they run the world, as Vet Girl 84 was saying before, corruption agenda, and Mish, how the freaking Freaking car beeps until you put the seatbelt on.
Yeah, it's so true.
My car's so old. I've got a 20-year-old car. It still looks good, except it's all bashed up because it's all bashed up. But it doesn't look like a 20-year-old car. But yeah, it doesn't beep. And I love that it's old enough that it doesn't beep when you put the seatbelt on. I'm thinking if I ever buy a new car, that's going to drive me crazy. Is there a way I can stop the beeping? Anyway.
Yeah, put your seatbelt on, Karen. There you go.
Put your seatbelt on,
I'm going to get all Karen on you and tell you to wear your seatbelt. No, I'm just kidding.
What was I going to say? I've totally lost my.
But we were talking about, how we become used to it.
Yeah, I think at some point pushing back becomes so hard that you just follow the line. But what I really want to discuss is how do you push back without being in defense, without being in resistance? Because this is something that the channelings, my guides talk about, and the channelings of Abraham talk about as well. You know, the way to change the world is not by yelling about what you don't want. It's by focusing on what you do want. So that's why I say, you know, if people are going to call you a Karen or call you woke, own it and say yes, and say why you own it. Stand up for what you believe in, and focus on what you do want. But also we can create new words. And in the spiritual community, we have, you know, we've created words that mean things that most people don't understand, like starseed, light worker, indigo, star child, crystal baby. Like we have all our words, you know, that mean something to us that we can use, which don't have a derogatory meaning behind them.
Right.
But they do talk about things, about different ways in which we operate as human beings, you know, connected to a stream of pure positive energy and infinite intelligence and multi-dimensional reality. And if we use those more out there, not just with our conscious friends or spiritually awake friends or, you know, whatever community you want to call that, but out there in the mainstream, like put those words out there and let them spread like Karen and woke, you know. What's Mish saying here?
Yeah.
Apparently also unsafe and insurance might void the claim. Yeah, that's true. Still on the seatbelts.
Yeah.
Oh, they're still talking about seatbelts beeping. Yeah, like use that same, because this is what they've used with us. It's like scammers. There was one scam that came in on an email once. I can't remember. It was probably a decade ago. But, you know, scammers are always saying, oh, please, I'm broke and I'm in another country and I need money. You know, they're appealing to your kind heart and sense of unity and sense of kindness to scam you. And I remember one came in and it was so well worded and it was appealing to that sensitive, kind, empathic, light worker type person. And it was just really well worded. I didn't fall for it, but I remember getting so, because I know when something's a scam, when you're psychic, you know all this. I was so angry that people would use, you know, human sense of kindness and unity and compassion and togetherness to rip them off. Like I was so angry. I remember getting so angry that people are out there using our sense of kindness. And this is what the corporations are doing and using words like woke. Yeah. And saying, you know, this woman that's on this show, I don't even know what her name is. What's her name? Whistleblower.
Oh, the whistleblower.
Desiree Fixler. She has a lot of really good points because she's been inside the system and she's directly talking to how corporations take these agendas and she talks about the greenwashing. So we think to ourselves, we have a lot of pollutive practices and we need to change that to help steward the planet in a better way. And
which is lovely.
And then people call you woke because there is no such thing as climate change, but you cannot deny that we're polluting our planet. Like, just think about it logically. Go to a supermarket and look at all those things, everything wrapped in plastic. Yeah. Plastic is a chemical that doesn't biodegrade. It takes thousands of years to break down. Then think about every supermarket in the world and think about every product on the shelf turning over daily. Like, think about the amount of trash.
I know.
Think about that. I mean, you cannot deny what we're doing to our planet. You can't call us woke if we think, you know, this has got to change. we can't continue to like put plastic in the ground or
Right.
wrap our stuff. And there are people out there that have developed products that, you know, are biodegradable and stuff like that. And governments don't jump on it and say, this is a great idea, this should be everything. I have to say, in Australia, not everywhere, but a lot of plastic bags that are handed out are biodegradable plastic bags these days. There is some going into that. But they did ban the plastic bag for a while in supermarkets, and I always take my own bags up there. And then they offered you a 10 cent or 20 cent or 50 cent or $1 bag, which was now a thicker plastic.
Yeah.
Than the ones they used to have when they were the single-use plastics. They do sell cloth bags as well. But
about the bags, you know, in the States here in America, there are certain states that you go into that are seen as more politically left. And those are those states where you have to buy a bag or bring your own bag, or they've banned plastic bags. Whereas the states that are more conservative right, that would not even be talked about. Like they don't even, you know, it's really interesting how just within the United States, it's so divided and different depending on what state you're in. Whether you have to buy a bag, it's the awareness level. And those would be considered the more woke states. But they're the ones that are like, you know, reduce plastic.
Reduce plastic. That just makes common sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is a crazy word. But I really believe that a spiritual solution is the solution to every problem we have here on Earth. When I say spiritual, consciousness, the awareness shift, waking the quantum self, like understanding that we are a soul, not a human body. You were talking before we went live about the abortion issue, save lives and lives matter and all that sort of thing. When you think about the body as who you are rather than the soul as who you are. And and get connected to our galactic counterparts who have been in the position that we're in, and they have found solutions and they can offer those solutions. I had a bit of an epiphany this morning because the guides, the galactic guides, the ETs have said to me, we have the solution to all your pollution problems. And I said, why don't you give it to us? And they said, well, you have to wake up as a human race and take responsibility. But they do steward the planet because the planet doesn't belong to humans. The planet just doesn't belong to humans. It's a collective, you know, ownership, really. And I saw something on Instagram this morning, which was really interesting. And years ago, I interviewed an environmentalist photographer who had a similar story. That 25 years ago, they said that the Maldives were going to be underwater because of climate change. And 25 years later, not only are they not underwater and the water hasn't risen, it's expanded exponentially, and there are 7 new airports, and there's 100 million, not 100 million, but many new resorts. And so that prediction, they said in 100 years, the Maldives would be completely underwater, and 25 years later, it's not. Again, something to say, it's a woke agenda, this climate change thing. It's not true. And the galactics, the ETs have said it is true. You humans are destroying your planet. In fact, 25 years of showcasing New World teachers, many that are connected to angels and galactic consciousness, have come with a message like 20, 30, 40 years ago, clean up your act, humans, you're destroying the planet. Like that has been the overwhelming message from our galactic friends. And yet there are Instagram things saying, you know, it's not happening, it's not happening. So I said to them, if it's not happening, are you actually helping us? And they said, of course we are. Because it's not about you, it's about the planet. Remember the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still remake with Keanu Reeves?
Of course.
And he's an ET that comes to save the planet. And when he's talking about saving the planet, the woman who's the, you know, interest in the movie
There's always
says,
a girl in the picture.
Always a girl says, oh, you're going to save us, meaning we are the planet. And he's like, no, we're going to kill you to save the planet. Like that was the idea of it. And I'm like, yep, right. So the ETs are not going to kill us to save the planet, but they are actually helping behind the scenes with a lot of climate. They still say, wake up, humanity, and take responsibility. And then companies who listen to people like us and call us woke, they're like, okay, we're going to create this, new energy.
Yeah.
And it's a complete greenwashing, because for 100 years there has been devices, anti-magnetic gravitic.
Wipe it out.
Yeah, anti-gravitic magnetic devices, the size of a toaster, you can connect to your home. That's going to create all the power that you need. It's the size of a toaster that can feed a city, and yet they kill the people who try to whistleblow these devices. And then they say we're going to create green energy and create wind farms and solar thing. It's like crazy what's going on.
It is crazy. And shoot, I had a thought I wanted to say about that earlier, but yeah.
Becca says any cardboard boxes entering my home now belong to the cat.
That's so true.
I got a delivery the other day from an online store, and it came in a big cardboard box, and I gave it to the cat as well. It's so funny.
Yeah. Well, you're reminding me. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. So how I believe that the ETs are helping us is there are those of us that are open or awake, or just sometimes scientists are just open, whether they're, spiritually inclined or into consciousness or not, and they'll just start to get the information. And I believe that they're planting it and giving it to us. It's like, an old example is the television. Well, the television was invented at about the same time in about 2 or 3 different countries at the same time, because it's out there. They were putting that communication out there, and those that were open to it picked it up or learned it, or, got the downloads to do that invention or create that thing. And I feel like that's how the ETs are helping us, is planting those things here and there in the right places. I think I sent you a video of a guy and a girl who were partying, and they live in Louisiana in the States. And they were like drinking a bottle of wine, and they're like, what are we going to do with this glass? Like, yeah, we can get it recycled, but there's got to be something more. And they have changed this entire thing where they are repurposing the glass and turning it back into sand.
Right. Wow.
And different levels of sand from different types of glass that are just good for sandbags, and some are being put on beaches. So,
wow.
And those were just a guy and a girl sitting around having a bottle of wine, on the beach. And there it is. It's out there in the collective, and they were open to it. What's her name? Elizabeth Gilbert, the author, in her book. Oh, now I won't remember the name of the book. But she talks about being open to creativity and being artistic. Oh, shoot. Now I can't remember. But she says, when you get that idea, write it down, write that story, do that thing. She says, because it happens all the time. She hears from other authors that they'll get an idea and they have the story, and then they kind of start and they get shy and they don't really finish it or whatever. And then somebody else comes out with that story. And it gets picked up in the collective, and it changes the world or something. And it's because it's out there. And it makes me, I actually thought about this when reading the teen books about the thought forms and the thought bubbles and the energetic bubbles. So there are, I would imagine the ETs are placing these energetic bubbles out there. And if I'm open, I'll connect with it. And then it's up to me to follow through with it. So absolutely. I went off, but...
No, it was a good tangent. You went off. It was great.
But that's how I feel about it.
This is an interesting comment from Thin White Duke. There's a British dog. Oh, here we go.
Drag queen.
Red dog, drag queen that I watch on YouTube called River, but he's very anti-woke. I don't get it. I wish these people who use woke as a what's that word say? Pejorative would explain what they think it means. Yeah, interesting. I know, because everyone has a different idea of what they think woke means. As I say, for years, I kept asking people, what does woke mean? Because I had an idea of what I thought it meant. As we said at the beginning of this, I thought it meant spiritual awakening. And then after 2020, 2021, it meant, waking up to the corruption in the world. And then it meant something different. Like, it kept changing in my idea of it. And but we were saying before to own it. They're all saying hello online. But sorry, getting back to what you were saying.
Well, just how I think the ETs are helping us, and if
the
open,
ETs are helping us, absolutely. Yeah. But when I asked them this morning, are you helping us not just with our downloads and that creative inspiration, but physically is what I meant. Like, are you physically helping us? Not us as in humans. They said, you humans have to wake up, but we are stewarding the planet. We are helping the planet because she's a consciousness. And she has asked for our help because she has these humans that are just polluting her and, killing her wildlife. And we do help. Like during the fires, 2019, 2020 in Australia, the big fires that we had, there's been many more bigger ones across the world, or big ones just the same across the world since then. But everyone was concerned. These images were going around the world of all the animals being burnt, the kangaroos and the koalas that people like to love, especially overseas, and I asked the guys, the ETs, about this, and they took me up onto a ship. I was in the shower one day, and they showed me that they had all the DNA for all the animals, but they also showed me little greys holding koalas and hugging koalas. I thought that was the most incredible image. And they just said, don't worry, nothing can ever be extinct because we always have the DNA. We have the chemistry of everybody. Nothing can be extinct. Anything can be recreated. But I mean, the fires were just in one place in Australia, and Australia is a very big place. So there are many more koalas. But I also talked to them about why so many animals had to die. And they did tell me that a lot of them were diseased. There's a disease in the koala population called chlamydia. Chlamydia, was it? So many of the koala bodies were eradicated. And so there is this spiritual intelligence inside these natural disasters. It's kind of interesting. And that we get upset when we see things die, but the ETs don't, because they understand that nothing dies. It's just a container that you were using for a while. They call it containers, the body, the animal body, and that you can reincarnate into any other container over and over and over again, multidimensional, and that you exist in many different containers simultaneously. A completely different perspective, one the world is waking up to.
Yeah.
But I think we need to use that creative intelligence that you were talking about, that Elizabeth Gilbert was talking about, to create new language that defines this spiritual intelligence and this understanding of our multidimensional perspective. As I said, there are words like starseed, indigo, many words kind of getting out there, but they're not quite in the collective yet. I think it's up to us to speak them more amongst our friends that are not quite up to speed with all this information, and get them curious, get them asking what does that mean? Communicate more of this stuff. That's why doing these shows and podcast shows and spreading the word is so important. Critical mass works for the derogatory, for the negative too. You can spread an idea that can degrade women or become more divisive, and our media systems do that a lot by the news talking about this versus that, right versus left, good versus bad. Everyone's talking about the fight, but we can do the same thing. We can use critical mass just by having the courage to speak about who we are and what we believe in, and not being offended when people call us crazy or woke, or what are some other derogatory terms, woo-woo, crazy.
Yeah.
Own your woo-woo, own your woke, own your Karens. Yeah, just own it, and don't be insulted. Don't be insulted by it. But it is good to be informed and to think about this earth in a way that is more globally impactful and spiritually impactful. Yeah.
Well, and as you're talking too, I am remembering channel messages that have come in, or you've had speakers on that talk about this, and other videos that I watch, that they say often that it doesn't have to be critical mass. It doesn't have to go completely over 50%, because the light's going to spread, and the light will spread from just a few, and we'll hold the space and carry it, you know?
Yeah. Interesting enough, critical mass is not 50%. I asked when I was talking to the guides years ago about critical mass. It seemed to be a popular subject amongst the spiritual podcast community or spiritual community. People calling it the 100th monkey effect. And still people, I have many guests that talk about it, the 100th monkey effect, the 100th monkey effect. And then they tell the story of the monkeys and the sweet potatoes or the bananas, and it's always a different story. It's so funny how stories spread and all the details get lost. But regardless of the 100th monkey effect story, it is describing critical mass. So I said to the guides, speak to me more about critical mass. And they said it's a tipping point where enough people believe in something, and because we're all united and all connected, it just spreads through the mind of the whole of humanity. And they said it's actually less than 5%.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Yeah. That it's like only 10%, 5%. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
because we're all connected. And when enough people, like they talk about the running the minute mile, that's what it was. Like it was impossible for someone to run a mile in under a minute at some point. And when somebody did it, and that information spread across the globe through television, I think it was way before the internet, or through the press, however it was spread, through newspapers, or however it was spread at the time, because I think it was the beginning of last century. When everyone said, wow, this can be done, then lots and lots of people started doing it. But before somebody broke through, nobody could do it. And then once it was possible, now it's possible, and then so many more people could do it. So this is how we're all connected mentally and consciously, and how ideas can spread through the collective.
Yeah.
Critical mass. And how are we going to use that power as awake people, as spiritually conscious and awake people? How are we going to use that power? And that is to speak and not be afraid of being criticized or called woke or called woo-woo or called a Karen. Yeah, to like speak your truth. Speak your truth.
Yeah, I'm being reminded of something in nature while you're talking about this, and that is that say there's like a herd of deer or elk in the forest, and they all tend to, they're all just going along, and then they go in one direction together for safety to stay in numbers. And, we had always assumed that you would follow the alpha male, the big buck, the big, huge deer, because he knows where to go to safe. And they have studied it, and they had found that that's not actually the case. They'll continue to go in that direction until enough of them choose a different direction, and then they all go that direction. So it's that critical mass again. It's them collectively, and they don't speak with words. I mean, is that telepath? Yeah, the way that animals communicate.
It's a consensus rather than a dictatorship. Which we, like all the galactics, talk about their governance. When I ask them how they govern, how they organize themselves, they say it's always a consensus. We talk about democracy, but we don't live in a democracy because we have politicians making decisions outside of us, saying, yes, we think this is a good idea or not a good idea. We talk about living in a democracy, but we don't. We really do live in this top-down sort of hierarchical dictatorship system. But once we become conscious and we rule the world differently, we'll do it like the animals do it, right? We'll be more collectively, focused on, it's interesting. Even I was watching something recently. Am I going to get this right? Okay, a lot of people talking about socialism because of the Venezuela. We've got 7 minutes to go. Because of Venezuela and what's happened, politically over there, and they're talking about socialism. And I was watching somebody talk about communism versus democracy versus socialism, and they were saying that both socialism and communism is all about exactly what we're talking about, what you're talking about with the deer, about there being a consensus and, good for the people, not just for the one, whereas capitalism is about what's good for me and how can I make money and capitalize on, ideas. And in theory, it's all a good idea, and it's all an advanced way of living, this socialism idea and what's good for the collective and not just for the one. But when it's put into practice across our three-dimensional world, which is run by lies and corruption, it becomes totally distorted, and then people starve, like in Venezuela. I think that I was watching a little bit about their history, and their dollar just plummeted, and buying a thing of rice was now it was just crazy what was happening in this socialist country. And so they're not implementing the ideology behind it, but yet they're calling it that. And then people get out there and say, it's a bad thing, it's a bad thing, it's a bad thing. But it's, being more collectively orientated is not a bad thing. It's actually evolution. It's actually evolution. Being more concerned about who we are as a collective human race, rather than just thinking about what's in it for me. What's in it for me?
But not to lose your individuality in it, right? Like, you still are a single soul, and we all are sharing the planet, right? And, we all should be stewards, not just leave it up to the ETs to steward it, come together and agree on something to steward it, but I may do it in my way and you may do it in your way, and I may do it through, you're doing it through podcast shows, where somebody else may be out, creating sand from bottles.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And
interesting. A lot of people ask that question, do I maintain my individuality when I re-emerge to source? Or do I become, a drop in the ocean, and I become the ocean and I lose my identity? And every single person that's ever been asked this question, whether they are channeling from another dimension or they've had a near-death experience, say that you retain your individuality when you return to the ocean of source, that you never just re-emerge and have no identity.
Oh, I love that.
What the guides are saying is, I'm saying, they say that this is a choice. You might want to wipe your identities. You can choose to do that or not to do that. That, every time I talk to the guides about the other side, there's never this is right or wrong. There was always freedom to choose, freedom to choose, freedom to choose. If you want to do that, you can do this. If you want to do that, you can do this. So, but if you want to maintain that individual perspective, you can, rather than just being sort of swept up in the ocean of consciousness. Yeah. But, and it's the same with this idea of working more for the collective rather than for the individual. You can maintain, as you say, Kristin, that individual perspective. I think we've got a long way to go before we implement these ideas of what's good for humanity. People talk about it. We're doing what's good for humanity. But are they really? Yeah, some people are.
Well, and then it comes down to who's judging what's good for one person may not be good for another, right?
Right.
You're vegan, right? Do you eat vegan
Not really.
or vegetarian?
I call myself Megan, which is mostly vegan.
Yeah. But I can't eat that way because I can't get enough protein, because my body reacts to the artificial protein or the other proteins like soy protein and stuff like that. It'll kill me. Yeah. And so, what's good? So should we all eat that? Well, no, so it comes down to individuality, and we don't want it bland and boring. I do like having all the difference, but I think if we're coming from a place of, empathic, caring for each other and stewarding, like to use that word, a steward, I think it's different.
A steward for the planet. So wrapping this conversation up, I'd like to get other people's perspectives. Now we've got people online, what they thought the word woke meant to them. A lot of people came on later. Stay woke. As I said, there are these images out there saying stay woke. For me, I think it's just an attack on people that are concerned about the plight of freedom and humanity, and then they're being attacked by voices that are just inciting fear, and like they've used the word Karen, making Karens out to be ugly people instead of beautiful, helpful people. Yeah, the way that people are just inciting fear, and what we can do is just own it. And like Byron Katie says, what does she say? Like, you can't upset me. That's my job.
I love that.
People can call you any name they want, and it's only you who can be upset about it when you believe it. And she was in jail once doing a talk many years ago, and to a hard crowd, a bunch of jailers, guys in jail, and there was a guy heckling her up the back, and people were telling him to shut up, and she said, no, let him talk. Now, what would you like to say? And he said, you're ugly. You are so effing ugly. And she said, tell me more. And she got off the chair on the stage and came down and said, I'd like to hear more of your opinion. I love this story. He said, what's with the grey hair? Why don't you dye your hair? You look like an old woman. And he was just throwing these insults at Byron Katie. And she's like, when you get out, maybe you should get a job as a stylist, because you seem to know a lot about how people should look. She just wasn't upset. So her philosophy is, she hasn't been upset for like 30 odd, 20, 40 years. I don't know how long it's been now. 25 years ago, Oprah asked her, or 20 odd years ago, you mean you haven't had a negative thought in all this time? And she said, no, I've had millions of them. I just don't believe them. Yeah. So it's up to us whether we believe in what other people are saying, or we want to stay in that happy, joyful place and let people throw their insults at you, throw their ideas and their ideologies and their dogma at you, and you stay connected to that source of pure positive energy, that source of love, that infinite intelligence, knowing that you are source incarnate and nothing can really hurt you, even if they kill you, which was the message of Jesus. You can make me wrong, you can string me up, you can crucify me, and you still won't piss me off. Anyway, it's a beautiful world. Shirley says, perfect. Hello, darling one. Thanks, Mish, for all your comments. We've run out of time. We've gone over time. Thank you, beautiful Kristin.
Thank you.
I want to say to people too, if you want something that we want to talk about, and apparently we're talking to about 500,000 people on this show and about 700, 800,000 on ATP, and I never get any new subscribers on YouTube. So if you are listening out there in Radio Land, come over to YouTube and please subscribe to my channel. I'd love to hit 10,000. I've been on about 8,000 now for about 8 years. It hasn't changed. So please subscribe. For those people that are listening, that are watching online and aren't subscribed, I would love you to subscribe. I want to hit that 10,000 mark. It keeps going down rather than going up. I don't know what. I don't know why.
Weird.
Maybe people
very strange.
I don't know. People don't like what I'm saying, but I actually think it's the algorithms. So big love to everyone, and Happy New Year. Bye for now.